It was as if a wave of evil washed over this town.
We are all evil in some form or another.
What they discovered upon their arrival was almost unspeakable.
We are all evil in some form or another.
I'm not guilty.
The dead won't bother you. It's the living you gotta worry about.
If I couldn't keep them there with me whole, at least I felt that I could keep their skeletons.
But no matter what I did, I could not undo the terrible harm I had caused.
In Los Angeles, a killer the police are calling the Hillside Strangler has murdered 10 young women and left their bodies on the hillsides along the highway.
It was as if a wave of evil washed over this town.
We are all evil in some form or another.
What they discovered upon their arrival was almost unspeakable.
We are all evil in some form or another.
I'm not guilty.
The dead won't bother you. It's the living you gotta worry about.
If I couldn't keep them there with me whole, at least I felt that I could keep their skeletons.
But no matter what I did, I could not undo the terrible harm I had caused.
In Los Angeles, a killer the police are calling the Hillside Strangler has murdered 10 young women and left their bodies on the hillsides along the highway.
It was as if a wave of evil washed over this town.
We are all evil in some form or another.
What they discovered upon their arrival was almost unspeakable.
We are all evil in some form or another.
I'm not guilty.
The dead won't bother you. It's the living you gotta worry about.
If I couldn't keep them there with me whole, at least I felt that I could keep their skeletons.
But no matter what I did, I could not undo the terrible harm I had caused.
In Los Angeles, a killer the police are calling the Hillside Strangler has murdered 10 young women and left their bodies on the hillsides along the highway.
It was as if a wave of evil washed over this town.
We are all evil in some form or another.
What they discovered upon their arrival was almost unspeakable.
We are all evil in some form or another.
I'm not guilty.
The dead won't bother you. It's the living you gotta worry about.
If I couldn't keep them there with me whole, at least I felt that I could keep their skeletons.
But no matter what I did, I could not undo the terrible harm I had caused.
In Los Angeles, a killer the police are calling the Hillside Strangler has murdered 10 young women and left their bodies on the hillsides along the highway.
It was as if a wave of evil washed over this town.
We are all evil in some form or another.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Before we get rolling on this gravy train, if somebody in the chat just wants to let us know that our sound is good, that would be perfect. How are you, Janelle?
I'm good. I've got my glasses.
You're looking very chic.
Thank you. I should have got my typewriter out so I could also have them.
Oh my
I
god, just a
look like a
constant like tick
secretary.
tick 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 in the background.
Yes.
Oh my
There's...
god. Please. That would be awesome.
Yeah, getting pumped.
Okay. Let's see.
I think our audio is good.
Okay.
I checked.
Okay. Perfect.
On my computer.
Perfect. I know. I was just looking to see on my phone. Okay. So, welcome to another BTC Quaren-Stream. I'm Vicky.
Hi, Janelle.
And today is Far Out Friday.
We
Girl, you are
went
looking
totally opposite directions on our far outness.
We definitely did. You went very like housewife, like
I'm Mad Men style secretary. I don't actually wear glasses, so this is hard.
I know, and I'm not wearing my glasses, which is I actually have not been wearing them as often because I just can't see far away. Everything I'm doing right now is up close, so I'm good. Yeah. So we were started to talk about this a little bit because I very quickly realized after we decided on this theme that I have like nothing in my closet anymore because I just did the whole cleaning thing and got rid of a bunch of stuff. So I was trying to figure this out, and my mom came in and said, "Is this far out enough?" And I got this shirt, which it's a 50-year-old shirt. It was handmade by my grandmother.
Awesome.
With hold on, I will show you.
Oh my gosh.
Matching pants.
Yes.
Also.
1,000 times.
Pattern.
Yes.
Yeah. So this was actually made.
I love a good pantsuit.
Right? So this was actually made for my mom when she was 13. And she
Oh my God.
I was like, she brought this out and was like, "Will you fit into this?" And I was like, "I think so." And I put it, I was like, "Oh my God, I barely fit into this." I'll probably have to peel myself out, but the construction is good. Grandma did good, so.
Yeah. Mine's nice, of course. I have a closet's full of vintage.
Yeah.
But I've worn this dress several times for Halloween.
Just because I feel like it would fit for a lot of things.
A pop art zombie and Tippi Hedren's character in The Birds, because it's like got the same cut. You have a nice jacket that goes with it.
Good. Yeah. Those glasses,
it's very boxy.
I was looking through my closet like, man, I wish I had more mod stuff. Like, I really want to channel Twiggy.
I have go-go boots. Like, I have a lot.
Oh my
From the 20s into the 80s.
I am not surprised at all, like, in the very least. Okay. So
yeah, I debated wearing a vintage nightgown that I have. We'll save that for another stream.
Oh my God. Okay, so why don't we get started with some news? Like we do. I feel like we need our transition song in here.
Far out news. Come on, man, let's change the world.
Yeah. So we didn't talk about COVID last week, so we have to talk about it just a little bit this week. One of the things that we've been talking about a lot recently is crime statistics and kind of like watching where things are going, whether they're going up and down in response to the COVID outbreaks and the vast stay-at-home orders in the United States and all over the world. But Italy, which of course we know had probably the most stringent lockdown, I would say, of any thing.
Did anyone protest over there?
Oh my God, it doesn't seem like it.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because they're not idiots.
Yeah, but they also don't have to deal with astroturfing and right-wing groups organizing pop-up protests randomly. But that's another podcast for another time.
You know, we're not a political podcast.
Yeah. So Italy is actually seeing a really interesting trend where crime rates have dropped 66.6% in March, but criminal loan sharking has actually jumped 9.1%.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I could see that, actually.
Yeah. It might be innocuous at first, but it feeds concerns from the government and government officials that families struggling financially in the wake of COVID, the COVID shutdown, would turn to illegal financing networks to kind of make it through. Prosecutors have also said some of Italy's mafia.
Yeah.
They've said some of Italy's mafia have already started to take advantage of the crisis to buy favor with poor families. There have also been warnings from the Italian government that mafia organizations may look to get into recovery funds offered by the government and the EU to help revive the country through, I don't even know, I'm sure various front businesses or whatever. But so they're a little worried about this sort of like mafia I don't want to say uprising, but like a return to a mafia takeover. Yeah.
La Cosa Nostra.
Oh God, that's just what we need again.
Yeah.
So that was that. I just thought I wanted to touch on that because I thought this increase in loan sharking, it was one of those things at first was kind of like, huh, and then you thought about it and it was like, yeah, no, that makes sense. That does.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't pay your bills, yeah, you're gonna need a little help. But I don't think that will happen here.
No, I don't think. I don't
think we have enough loan sharks to supply us.
Not in our neck of the woods, anyway.
I mean, isn't the government really just a giant loan shark? Neither here nor there.
Oh my God, I never wear my hair down, and I got hair all over right now. This is like, oh God. Okay.
Sorry, Opinions O'Malley came out for a minute.
So next, we are going to talk about, this is actually from April 5th, but I happened to see it this week. So we're going to talk about Marshall Mathers, a.k.a. Eminem.
Sorry. Cool.
Yep. I just found this story kind of funny. So his property...
Does this have to do with spaghetti?
It doesn't, and especially not mom's spaghetti.
No, because he donated a bunch of mom's spaghetti.
Did he really?
Yeah. It's like mason jarred spaghetti that he donated to a couple hospitals.
That's amazing. I kind of love that. Dude's legit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so his property has its own security. However, there was a home intruder that was able to get past the security and break into his home. What happened is while the guards were around the front of the property, the home intruder was able to, he got into the back, breaking a kitchen window with a paving stone and then climbing into the house. The breaking of the window set off the home alarm, and Marshall Mathers, aka Eminem, woke up and actually detained the dude. Like, he went downstairs and detained the dude in his house until a security guard showed up.
Oh my God. What is he paying those guys for then?
I don't know, but I'm kind of surprised that it's like, I just imagine like 4 security guards, but all of them doing rounds at one time together. Like, let's go together, it'll be safer, guys. And they all go around to the front of the house.
They're probably all blazed out of their mind. They didn't know what was going
on. So the intruder was 26-year-old Matthew Hughes. They called police, obviously. He's being charged with first-degree home invasion and malicious destruction of property between $1,000 and $20,000, which I thought, man, that's a huge range.
That is.
Yeah. It just seems like a crazy range to me. So that's a thing that happened. Can you tell I was scraping for news?
Yeah. It's tough not to do COVID stuff.
It really is. And I'm trying really hard not to. So this one, I was like, oh my gosh, because this again happened, I believe a few days ago, but really it started hitting the news today. So on Wednesday, workers at a business near Andrew T. Cleckley funeral services in Brooklyn noticed a U-Haul truck giving off a foul odor and called police. Turns out the funeral home was using U-Haul vehicles to store dozens of bodies in unrefrigerated trucks.
That sounds smart.
Sounds great, right? The funeral home was reportedly filled to capacity and opted for a completely unsanitary place to store anywhere from 30 to 60 bodies. They haven't released a final number. And these were all bodies that were awaiting burial. The funeral home is facing possible fines and suspensions, and U-Haul came out saying they were issuing the funeral home a lifetime ban, saying, yeah, right, can't use our trucks anymore. So they were issuing a lifetime ban, saying the quote, our trucks are designed for household moves, properly caring for the remains of people's loved ones requires vehicles suited specifically for that purpose. Our trucks absolutely cannot be rented for this reason.
A box truck's not usable.
Yeah, they're taking a hard stance on this and saying, no, we can't store bodies. It's a hot take, but, you know. Interestingly enough, in an article with local news outlet Pix 11, Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams mentions that the blame cannot be put solely on the funeral homes, saying, quote, it starts at the cemeteries. If we don't start increasing the bodies we're putting in the ground, then they're going to stay above ground. We need to have the medical examiner not work 8 to 8. He needs to do 12 o'clock so funeral directors can actually get there, and morgues need to stay open later, end quote. Which I wanted to include because I felt like that was a really interesting take. I mean, it's like, I kind of get where he was going with that, but when you say it out loud, it just kind of sounds really shitty.
Okay. I guarantee you that funeral homes are supposed to have contingency plans for pandemics. Okay.
Yeah.
So they need to be following that. Mm-hmm. And if there's an issue, I'm pretty sure the coroner's office has several like places that are refrigerated.
Yeah. Well,
that they can put bodies.
Like, obviously we have an influx of bodies. There's a lot of people dying right now, which is not great. And this is when the industry's impacted. I think that people don't necessarily think of right away, but you also got to think there's more. I know there's more than one funeral home in Brooklyn.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we've got more than one funeral home out here in our dingy little area. Like, I feel like there's always tons of funeral homes everywhere. So, like, I guess I don't understand why this particular one had such an issue with storing bodies when you didn't necessarily see that trend through other organizations.
Exactly. Which means that they don't know how to handle this shit.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So Adams also said that they'd be putting together a committee consisting of funeral directors, morgues, medical examiners, and clergy to come up with a plan for handling this influx of bodies. But like I said, the funeral home itself is going to be facing some fines and possible suspensions. At this point, the damage has kind of already been done because you have all of these people who I'm sure are waiting to bury their loved ones that now have to discover that the bodies have been sitting on an unrefrigerated truck.
Which does wonders for decomposition.
Yeah, right. So anyway, that's the news I have for today. I have another little thing, but I don't know if you want to do that now, if you want to talk about one of your things.
Yeah, we can talk about some TV we've been watching. What you been watching, Vicky?
So that's funny because that's actually next on my notes. It literally says, "What have you been watching?" ?
What have you been watching?
So I'm trying to think if this was the only thing I've been watching this week. I did finish up Innocence Files. I think that was the end of last week. I've been watching. So I got like cleaning TV where I'm like, when I'm cleaning, I just like chuck something on. And recently that's been absolutely fabulous. I love that show. But I have been watching Waco, which I know we talked about last week. And I did actually want to circle back to this because you mentioned something last week where you said after watching this, you kind of feel bad for them. And I totally get that. Like, you do feel
they made it hella sympathetic.
Yeah, a lot of sympathy for the Branch Davidians. And a lot of that is fictionalized, but at the same time, like, you gotta think there was a lot of that stuff that was going on, and the struggle between the ATF and the FBI was very real. And you do feel bad for them, because at the end of the day, these are all just people.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, a majority of those that were killed were children and women. So
yeah, I was a little thrown when I was like, "Is that Macaulay Culkin?" No, it's just Macaulay Culkin's brother. It's like, holy
Rory?
shit. That's it. Yeah, Rory Culkin.
Rory Culkin. Yeah, Culkin.
Anyway, I was like, oh. I also didn't know he had a brother that was an actor, but they're like, they look so similar.
I think he has more than one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is like, now Macaulay Culkin looks kind of, like he's done drugs for a long time.
He did a lot of drugs for a long time, yeah.
So this is Rory is
he's
like
sober now, but
he is sober now, and he's got like a podcast. He's out there doing other stuff, but Rory looks like if Macaulay Culkin had never done drugs and just grew into an adult.
Right.
That's what Rory looks like. Yeah.
He looks weathered, you know.
Yes.
A little weathered.
So what have you been watching?
I have been watching The Plot Against America on HBO. Are you familiar?
I'm not, but I think we talked about it last week briefly. So it's a pretty good. It's like a little mini series. I want to say there's like 7 episodes. I forget, but it's based off of the Philip Roth book, which talks about an alternative history if FDR didn't win a second term and instead Charles Lindbergh won. I have seen the trailers for
he's
this.
a fascist.
It looks so good. It looks so good.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It made me I was getting enraged, even though I know it's a fake history, and I'm like, gah! But it's probably because it's like so similar to what's happening right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
So it's an interesting. I think that they picked really great actors and actresses for the series, but it definitely portrays an alternate history that really could have happened. Like, it really could have happened. There was a lot of Nazi sympathizers in the United States, so it kind of picks up with FDR losing his second term. And Lindbergh becomes president, and he has kept the U.S. out of war, but he's also having sit-down meetings with Hitler and Germany. And he's like, we're not going to side with Germany, but we're also not going to be in the war. So you have all these people fleeing to Canada, and then it becomes illegal for you to fight overseas and join. And it's just like this big roller coaster. But it's really interesting.
Yeah. I have been seeing trailers for that, and it's based on a book, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. By Philip Roth, yeah.
Have you had a chance to read the book yet?
Yes, yeah. We actually put it up for one of our recommendations for Murders to Quarantine too, because it's a really good read. But I'm very interested in like the alternate history stuff.
Yeah.
And people's takes on that. It's especially fascinating for World War II. I just like for World War II because I'm an army nerd.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know. And it's weird when you think like how real those things can be. Like I think the only thing I've watched recently that's kind of this like alternate history or alternate future was like Handmaid's Tale, where it's like I can see how easily this would happen. I actually got a little triggered today because I had a news article pop up, something having to do with COVID related funding and an organization called Gilead, and I was like, oh God, what? Yeah. It's one of these moments where I was like, is this happening in real life?
Well, I mean, The Handmaid's Tale is based off of real, like a conglomerate of real things that occurred in history, and she just mashed them all together.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like
so
looking around at
really happening somewhere.
Looking around at like what's actually happening outside. It's like, how easily can this be our future? And it's kind of fucking terrifying. Yeah, like, it's really terrifying.
It's super terrifying. But in The Plot Against America, they did all of these programs that were really like relocation programs under disguise. And it was like, send your kid to go spend a summer on a farm down in Kentucky. And really, it's like this slow indoctrination of becoming less Jewish, which is what they were trying to do.
Never
push
trust
all the
the
Jewish
government. Never trust them.
So,
Yeah. So what was
that's what I've been watching. And just
up,
raging.
Down? Good,
it's a thumbs up, yeah.
That's on HBO, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'm definitely gonna have to check that out. Now, I mean, obviously, I have at least until the end of May. It's not bad,
at least the book. Yeah, the book's good.
Yeah, which I have actually, this is a new thing, and this kind of was spurred on by, I know I've brought this up a couple of times, I think, in live streams. I just finished the book by Malcolm Gladwell called Talking to Strangers, which is fantastic. I absolutely recommend it to everybody. It kind of looks at this idea of human beings, kind of it's this idea of default to truth and why we're so eager to believe people when they tell us something, or why trying to judge strangers' reactions to things is such a difficult thing, and actually like reading people's reactions. But it's all done on the basis of looking at cases where people have lied. So they've talked about the time there was a Cuban spy in the government. They talked about I want to say it was Churchill, but I don't think it was, who went and talked to Hitler right before World War II to try and stop a war. I don't think it was Churchill saying that. I think it was somebody else. Anyway, they also look at things like the case of Amanda Knox, the case of Sandra Bland, the case of Bernie Madoff, or you know what I mean? Like, there's all of these things that he ties in from the true crime world that are really, really great. Anyway, the whole point behind this is because of that book, I got an Audible subscription. So I might have to check that out because I have this like free credit I have to use. Right now I'm actually listening to Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow, which is something I've been really trying to get.
Yeah. You can also get really great stuff from your library for free digitally too, if you don't want to, spend the cash on a subscription for someplace.
It's true.
There's a lot of really great books.
I will say the reason I paid $15 at least for this month was because it was going to take me like 26 weeks to get the audiobook for Catch and Kill, which I was like, I kind of want sooner than that. There's a great app on iOS and Android called Libby, Libby, that is super easy to get digital books and audiobooks for free. So definitely check that out. Yeah,
it's definitely worth it.
Oh my gosh.
But I was also occupying myself with, right, you're playing through here, I'm playing with my glasses.
I'm just so hot.
Because I'm in the museums and libraries, that's, research and analysis.
You got the perfect glasses for that tonight.
But I've been paying attention to a lot of what museums have been doing since we've been quarantined. And have you ever been to the International Museum of Surgical Science in Chicago?
I have not. I think the closest thing I've been to is the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia. That would probably be about the closest thing. But not the one in our own backyard. Go figure.
I went there for my birthday. I do this thing where I try to go to a new museum for my birthday. Again, I'm a nerd. So I went there 2 years ago, I think.
That sounds right.
And it's like in an old building with beautiful like terrazzo floors, and it's got a long staircase, and it takes you through surgical sciences, but they also have a lot of stuff that is related to like forensics and criminology and murder and all of these different weird things throughout surgical history. But right now they're doing these like digital tours where they take you through the museum on a Wednesday.
Okay.
And they go through all of these different things. But one of the exciting things that they put up that you can look at without doing the digital tour is this piece that's a 4,000-year-old skull.
Ooh.
You're like, okay, That's interesting. But why? It's got a giant hole in it, okay?
Okay.
In its dome. Because it is one of the first, and I hope I say this right, trephination procedures.
Drilling a hole in your head?
Yes.
All right.
4,000 years old, okay?
Wow.
So if you're not familiar, it's a procedure that entails drilling into your head and kind of scraping and cutting the scalp back and then going inside your skull and treating your brain for various things like headaches, hallucinations, epilepsy, all that stuff.
Man, that sounds sketch as fuck.
They have that up right now, but it's 4,000 years old.
That's crazy.
Okay? But they said that the skull has signs of bone regrowth on the outside edges of the hole, which means that the person survived that surgery.
Wow, 4,000 years ago.
That is frightening.
That is nuts. That's crazy. I'm actually going to have to share this with one of the friends of the show, Julian. He's an anthropologist, and he would like totally be into something like that.
It's definitely worth a check out.
Yeah, and you said
it's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite museums. To be
said that's on their website.
Yep. They also have it up on their social media as well right now. So
okay, I'm gonna have to definitely send that link along to a couple of people, I think.
It's pretty great.
So I also, in honor of our Far Out Friday live stream, decided to do something a little fun. I'm always like news and official, right? It's never really like, I don't know,
official.
Serious news. Yeah. But I thought it would be really fun to look back at May 1st in the 1960s and see if there was anything like crime related that happened on May 1st. Spoiler alert, not a whole lot. But there were some really interesting things.
That's a little surprising.
It is a little surprising because, yeah, May 1st, May Day, like, that's kind of a, I feel like that'd be one of those.
International Workers' Day, you know?
Yeah. So this is what I was able to find. In 1961, the first U.S. airplane was hijacked to Cuba. Now, in the 60s, this was like, actually, this first hijacking kind of sparked this series of hijackings that went basically from the 1960s into the 80s, where people were like hijacking planes all the fucking time.
So many political hijackings.
I will say that the first casualty from one of these hijackings didn't happen until, I want to say, the early 70s. So like a lot of these were not like people getting injured or anything. This one in particular I looked into. So it was an electrician in Miami named Antulio Ramirez Ortiz. He boarded a Key West bound flight, locked himself in the bathroom, passed a note underneath the compartment door saying that he had a bomb, and the crew just complied. I mean, they're just like, all right. So he demanded that the flight be taken to Havana in Cuba. The crew complied. Ortiz disembarked without incident, and the plane just flew back to Key West. They just like dropped him off and flew home.
One way to get a direct flight.
Yeah, right. Ortiz did eventually face prosecution in both Cuba and the United States, but I just thought that was really interesting because you got to think too, back then, like the security we have today did not change until September 11th, 2001.
Yeah,
like that was the.
You could walk right up to the gate. You could have weapons on you. Like nobody cared.
Yeah, and that was the changing point for our modern day security, which is crazy to think about because you and I are both old enough to remember everything that happened during that. And as a result, obviously, we now have less security. But even in the 60s, it was like way
you
more.
could smoke on a plane.
Yes. Think like Mindhunter, if you ever watch that. They're always like smoking on planes, doing this, carrying whatever. They got their sidearms with them, like. None of that would fly.
No, literally, it wouldn't fly.
Okay, so this one is not crime related. I just found it really funny.
Oh.
In 1962, the first Kmart opened in Garden City, Michigan.
Kmart! Do you remember Kmart?
I do. It was, and so I wanted to look into this because it opened in 1962. They finally combined with Sears Roebuck in 2005, which is when they finally like closed everything up. It was like the
there's still some
Target.
Kmart's, like down in Australia. Kmart still exists. Yeah.
Well, I didn't realize that they had
Fruitopia too. Fruitopia is still in Australia, and I'm kind of pissed about it.
Wow, you guys have it good down under.
Australia.
I want that
Yeah, I need to
Fruitopia.
go down under.
So we got an interesting question in the chat. If you hijacked a plane, where would you force it to go?
Where would I force it to go? Ugh. I don't know. Wherever there's the loosest laws.
I would probably. Yeah, that's true. This is. Does this mean so? If we forced a plane to go somewhere, would we actually be prosecuted under the law? I guess that would be the first question. Because if I could do this with no consequences, that's a different story.
Pull a DB Cooper and like jump out of that bitch somewhere.
Yeah, because my first inclination is to go to England. That would be like my first thought.
Okay.
That's where I would go. Or Australia.
Drop me in the English Channel.
Yeah. But
international waters.
I would definitely get prosecuted in England. So.
Yeah, I'd probably say like some obscure island somewhere.
Yeah.
In the South Pacific, where I'm sure the laws are much more lax.
Or like.
But not during hurricane season.
Or like.
Tsunami season. Whatever the hell it is over there. Tsunami.
One of those places that doesn't really like the U.S., like Saudi Arabia, maybe? I don't know.
Well, maybe not there.
Maybe not there.
They don't like the U.S. Also, I'm a woman.
So also that. Good point.
That'd be an
not
issue.
Saudi Arabia.
That'd be an issue.
I didn't include this in my news because I was kind of just like, ugh, I don't really want to talk about it. But since I brought up Saudi Arabia, they just outlawed flogging as a punishment for the first time. You can still get ordered to be beheaded or killed if you're like a drug dealer or a murderer or whatever. But for a lot of the low-level offenses,
flogging.
Yeah, for a lot of the low-level offenses, there was an order of flogging, and they recently, just like yesterday or today, finally outlawed flogging as a punishment. Side note, I guess I want to say thumbs up to Saudi Arabia, but it's still really shitty over there. So, like.
And also, guys, just check your privilege. How many times have you been flogged in your life?
True. Oh my God. Okay, so Kmart opened in 1962. There wasn't really anything big. The last big thing that I saw, I mean, I should say crime related. Obviously, there was like Vietnam was happening and like a lot of, war things. But we're not going to talk about that.
War. What is it good for?
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
But way towards the end of the 60s, in 1969, 43
summer love, baby.
43 Unification Church couples were wed in NYC. Now, if you're listening to this thinking, what is the Unification Church? You would you would probably know what I'm talking about if I called it by the Moonies.
Cults, baby.
Cults. Yeah, I had to include this one. So for those of you that don't know,
it's not the 60s without cults.
It's true. Oh my God, so true. They just didn't do anything interesting on May 1st. Go figure.
That's how quickly a commune can turn into a cult.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like that.
So for those of you that don't know, starting in the 1950s and 60s under leader Sun Myung Moon, it's fair to say that the Moonies were/are somewhat a controversial group. I will say the group that exists as part of I don't even think it's part of the Unification Church anymore. I think it's its own separate thing now in modern day, run by the Son of Moon, is a very different thing. They are known they're known as being the church that takes AK-47s to their church services. I'm sure.
Yeah.
A lot of people remember that imagery.
They're pretty loopy.
They're a little weird. But as far as the Moonies, yeah, right. As far as the Moonies go, some of their questionable choices include urging members to support Richard Nixon during the Watergate crisis. Yeah, they say choices, and I'm just gonna tell you right now, this is a very like Reader's Digest version of the Moonies. I'm skimming over a lot of shit here because there's a lot of shit to talk about. But so
the Moonies are fascinating.
They are. So they asked members to support Richard Nixon during the Watergate crisis. They were openly anti-communist and openly conservative. Those two kind of things like went really hand in hand. The members of the church came under fire for their belief that Moon was the second coming of Christ. Their extreme devotion to church activities at the cost of relationships, families, and careers. And, of course, probably what they're most well known for are their massive marriage ceremonies. The most memorable one actually happened a little later in 1982. It took place in Madison Square Garden, where 2,075 couples, most of which were matched by Moon himself, and some of which had come from overseas to get married, were wed in this giant mass wedding. That's kind of, I think, the thing that most people think about when they think of the Moonies is that picture of, like, all of those couples in, like, their wedding gowns and tuxes, like, at Madison Square Garden. It's crazy. Look into it. It's a whole thing.
Nutters.
I will say, if you want a little bit more information about the modern day Moonies, or what's become of the Unification Church in the United States, check out Cults and Extreme Belief on Hulu. They did a great episode on him and kind of the organization itself. It's just weird. It's wild. It's a little much for my taste.
Really? I thought we were all about the cults, Vicky.
We are, but I'm saying I wouldn't join an organization that takes AK-47s to church. So they also have like a crown thing. Like you can't wear a crown and a tiara until you get married. There's something like that. I don't know.
Who's wearing crowns and tiaras on the regular?
The people who go to this church.
I'm sorry.
I don't know what to tell you.
Ugh. Well, Vicky.
Janelle.
Are you ready for this epic game that I have?
I am. So I'll tell you guys, I got a message earlier in the week. This is what she does. She'll say, so we're going to do this thing. I have another game. And I was like, actually, she said specifically, I think this one takes it too far. And I was like, can you give me a hint about it? And she said it's music related. So I have no idea what is happening.
Okay. So the 60s, man. It's like one of my favorite eras of music and fashion. Obviously.
It's a good. Oh, you know what? Hold on. Sorry. Let's rewind a little bit.
Oh, God.
The other thing I've been watching, this is related. The other thing I've been watching is Mrs. America, which has to do with the ERA and the opponents to the ERA. It's a lot of like, you know, women's libs stuff. It's really, really good. But one of the things that I love is the music in that show because it's all
good soundtrack.
Oh my God, so good. Very 60s, 70s.
Yes, I love it. I love a good.
But I'm sorry, you just reminded me about that. I totally forgot. Continue.
Well, I love music. I'm an aficionado of sorts. But one of my favorite things to do is to like shout out band names.
Okay.
So we do a lot of things like people talk or whatever. I'd be like, that's a band name.
Oh yeah.
So I thought I would take it to the limit, and we're going to pick some serial killers and create band names for them using keywords to put into a band name generator.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Okay.
I did one so you could get an idea of what is gonna happen. So this band name generator is called name-generator.org.uk.
Okay.
Because obviously some of the best music came from the UK, so I trust this band generator.
All right.
So it asks you like a series of questions. So for this example, when I put in John Wayne Gacy, and let me tell you, I laughed for a solid 15 minutes at the band names that it gave me.
Okay.
So here's the questions. It's like, tell us a bit about your band. So 2 adjectives to describe your band. And it suggests things like rock, indie, blah, 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 blah. So I put in there rock and lifeless.
Oh my God. Okay. All right.
It says the lead member's first name, John, for John Wayne Gacy.
Okay.
And then it says a place that has special significance to your band. I put in crawl space.
Nice. All right. I'm with this.
And then it says a singular noun. I put in boy. And it asks for a plural noun. And I put in boys. And then it said, add a verb that ends with ing. And I wrote tying.
Oh, Janelle. Oh no, girl.
And then it says a day, a month, or a season. I was like, I don't know. I put Friday. I was like, he seems like a man who likes a good Friday night.
Oh my God.
And then it said, put in a group of people. And the examples it gives are plumbers, Australians, and preachers. Again, I put in boys.
boys, and more boys?
More boys. And then it asks you for a color, and you can be specific, like electric blue or neon purple or whatever.
Okay.
So I just put in blue. And then it says a part of the body, plural.
Immediate first thought. Penises.
So this is the list of band names that it gave me, and then potential song titles for the bands.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Top choice for John Wayne Gacy band name is the Lifeless Boys Club.
Oh my God, Janelle. I see why you say this. It might have gone too far. This is too far.
Too well. Oh no!
Oh my God. Oh no.
Then it puts then it has some other ones that are pretty funny. It says boys and a boy. John eats the boy.
Okay.
Rage Against the Boy. Rock of Crawl Space. Boys for the Boys.
Oh no, girl.
That says Tying Boys. Puddle of Boys. Love the Boys. Oh my God. Rock Boys of the Blue Boy. Lifeless Dream and Flight of the Boys. Those are all the band names.
Flight of the Boys, like Flight of the Conchords.
Mm-hmm. And then it says the number 1 song title that you should put for your band is A Crawl Space State of Mind.
Wow. That's like way too dead on for him.
I know. I was like hyperventilating because it was too good. So,
oh my God.
We're going to play this game. I'm going to put the words in. So let's pick a serial killer, and then I'll help get some words in there, and then we'll have band names. So what serial killer would you like to create a band name for?
I feel like it would be really fun to do Charles Manson, even though he wasn't a serial killer, but I feel like that would be really fun.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're going to put his first name in the lead member's first name. Should we say Charles or Charlie?
Charlie.
Charlie. All right. So let's put in 2 adjectives to describe our band. So the examples they gave were shouty, rock, indie, whatever you want to call.
I would say folk. He'd probably be folk. And
there's also a suggestion button too, so we can randomize stuff by hitting suggest.
Okay, hit a suggest and let's see what it gives us.
You can do it several times too. Hit suggest. It gave us indie. Boring.
Boo. An adjective
Boo.
to describe Charles Manson. You think? Hey Google, what's an adjective to describe Charles Manson? Chloe, you suck. What is a good adjective to describe Charles Manson? Adjective. Let's see. What about crazy?
Crazy sounds good to
or
me.
Insane?
All right. A special place that has significance to your band.
Hollywood?
Hollywood, okay.
If I get any of this wrong, you have to tell me too. If I'm like way off base here.
It's whatever you want.
Okay.
A singular noun.
A singular noun.
This could be a person or an object.
God.
Ooh, okay. And then a plural noun. Can be the same or different.
Okay. Let's say... I always feel like when I'm put on the spot, I can't think of anything. Let's say pigs.
Pigs. Okay, that's a good one. All right. A verb ending in ing. So you're doing something.
Of course, the first word that comes to my head is fucking.
I was gonna say stabbing.
Stabbing's good.
Stabbing.
I know. Well, the second word that popped into my head was knifing, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's not an actual word.
That would be stabbing.
Stabbing sounds a lot better.
All right. So a day, a month, or a season.
Can you just put in Aquarius?
Yeah, that's a season.
This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius.
Now it gives you the option to also put in an animal if you want. Do you want to put in an animal? No. Skip the animal. Okay, we already have pigs. And then one of the other options is to list a group of people. So I put boys, I think, for my John Wayne Gacy one for this. But you can be specific, like it says Australians or preachers or plumbers.
Or I'm trying to think of some of his like crazier rants.
I mean, he said some pretty profane things about specific classes of people, so we can shy away from that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's also why I included the pigs thing. Yeah, you know. Why don't we say hippies?
Okay. All right. A color.
Mauve.
All right.
This is off the top of my head. Off the top of my head.
Would you like to add a part of the body?
Thumbs.
All thumbs.
Or your thumb, or just one thumb. Maybe thumbs.
All right. Okay. Ooh, are you ready?
Ooh, that's a good one.
All right. Here are some Charles Manson band names.
Okay.
Top pick, Crazy Aquarius.
Yeah, that fits.
Second choice, Charlie Eats the God. I feel like that's a good one.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Then there's Charlie's Crazy God.
Okay.
The crazy pigs. No rest for the hippies.
Ain't no rest for the hippies.
Inch pigs.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
The Stabbing Pigs. Saving Charlie. Purely Mauve.
Yes! That's my favorite. That's the one. Purely Mauve.
I think this is a winner right here. Folk God Cult.
Oh my god,
It's like they knew.
I like that.
The Folk Charlie Project. Teenage Folk Mauve Pigs.
That's just a mishmash. You just put a bunch of words together.
They did. God Army. Flight of the Pigs. Stabbing in Hollywood.
That's pretty good. Stabbing in Hollywood.
Oh my god. And then the top pick for a song title is Our Folk God Love.
That sounds about right.
And then the second choice is If I Was Your Folk God. This is a good generator.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have time for one more quick one? You want to do one more quick one?
I think so. Yeah, let's do a speed round here.
Okay.
All right. Let's pick a serial killer. Who should we do?
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Jeffrey Dahmer? Excellent. Okay. 2 adjectives.
An adjective is a word that describes a person. We will call him. Oh, also the kind of music he would listen to. What would he listen to?
Probably a lot of Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah. I was thinking if he was born in the 90s, he would have been a grunge man, probably. He was kind of like angry at mom and dad. Yeah. Well, he was angry at everything. But definitely Simon and Garfunkel. So why don't we go with, well, we already did folk.
We did folk.
Indie? I know that is pretty lame. We could go with like big band.
Swing.
Swing. Yeah, do swing. Do swing.
Okay. And then another adjective.
Hungry.
Hungry like the Jeffrey. A special place. Florida.
Florida or the garden shed.
Okay, I'll put garden. A singular noun.
Roadkill.
Okay. And then a plural noun.
Corpses?
Corpses. A verb ending in ing. Go!
A verb ending in ing. Eating?
Okay, I like where this is going. A day, a month, or a season.
June. I don't know
group of people. Nurses?
Do it.
Co-eds.
Co-eds, yeah.
Co-eds.
There you go. Co-eds. Co-eds is good.
A color.
Purple.
Okay. Oops, almost spelled that wrong. A part of your body.
Elbow.
Okay. All right. These are Jeffrey Dahmer. All right.
Oh, God.
Okay. Number 1 pick. Bring me the corpses.
Excuse me?
Bring me the corpses.
What did you say to me?
The Hungry Co-eds Club.
Okay.
Jeffrey Wonder.
I love that. Jeffrey Wonder.
Garden Shed Revival.
Yes! Oh my god, that's so good.
Mega Roadkill.
Okay, that's actually a good band name.
My Hungry Romance. That's the one.
That's the one.
That's the one.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Jeffrey and the Co-eds.
Jeffrey.
The Hungry Service.
Okay.
Bathtub Eating.
That could be it. Oh my god.
Oh. Roadkill, Corpses, and the Swing Brothers.
And the Swing Brothers. Yes. So much yes.
Roadkill Failure.
Okay.
And Hungry Dream.
Okay. I do think, what was it? My Hungry Romance? Is that what it was? That's good.
The number one song is This Love Is Swing, but It's Hungry.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. That's pretty accurate. Much. I dig this. This is awesome.
Oh, yes, that's why I said I've peaked at my game right now.
I know. I've been trying to think of games, but you're just much better at thinking of them than I am, I think.
That's because I play with children all the time at work, so it's like I'm a child.
It's true. All right. I think that's going to be it for today.
I think we've sealed the deal.
Sealed it.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you guys for joining us for another Quaren-Stream on Far Out Friday. We'll be back next week. Wait, are we still doing this next week? You still want to do this next week?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, we got to stay indoors until the end of May. Unless some random court decides we have to go back to work. I don't know what's going on. Illinois.
So we're going to say goodbye for now. We'll be back here, right here at 7 o'clock next Friday, whatever the date is. I have no idea.
Without the glasses.
Yeah. We'll think of another F-word theme for our stream.
Yeah, I had a couple things in the chamber in these pun guns.
Oh no. On that note,
we'll
wish you guys goodbye. Peace out, everybody.
So long. Far out, man.
What they discovered upon their arrival was almost unspeakable.
We thought all evil in some form or another.
I'm not guilty.
The dead won't bother you. It's the living you gotta worry about.
If I couldn't keep them there with me whole, at least I felt that I could keep their skeletons.
But no matter what I did, I could not undo the terrible harm I have caused.
In Los Angeles, a killer the police are calling the Hillside Strangler has murdered 10 young women and left their bodies on the hillsides along the highway.
It was as if a wave of evil washed over this town.
We are all evil in some form or another.